Welcome to Perspectives with Derwin Webb. I am Derwin Webb, coming to you from the Fraser History Museum. It's been a long time. Seems like we've been gone for a little while, but we are back now. And we are back because we have a special guest today. When I talked to this gentleman, we talked about it being Black Music Month, and he informed me very quickly that every month is Black Music Month. I want to bring to the stage writer, musician, producer, Grammy Award winner, the incomparable. But before I say his name, if I said the name Janet Jackson, Usher, Michael Jackson, the SOS Band, George Michael, all these different artists, what do they have in common? The one word that comes in common is my man, my friend, Mr. Terry Lewis. Mr. Lewis, thank you for coming on the show today. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you, Judge. I'm here and happy to be here, man. And I can't leave out my name, the name of my partner, Jimmy Jam. So I'm the second name in that phrase, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis.
Well, we appreciate you, Brother Lewis, coming on today because you could have been anywhere, but you chose to be here today. So I appreciate you, as we like to say, not big time in us, but coming on the show and talking, giving us a little perspective about life, about what's going on with you, about your journey. And that's where I kind of want to start. I want to kind of start with your journey. We only get about 30, 35 minutes to get everything together. So I'm not going to start about where you were born. I know you were born in Minnesota and things of that nature.
No. Stop there. I was born in Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha, Nebraska. I was going to say you went to high school in Minnesota.
Yes,
went to college in Minnesota. So I apologize for that. So let's start off there. Let's talk about the music itself. Why did you get involved with music to begin with?
Well, I don't think I chose music. I think music chose me. I was an athlete in high school, all-city football, state track champ, still hold the Minnesota records in the 100, I think tied for the 200 or something like that. But it was a crazy time, man. For any young Black boy, you know that when you're a teenager, it's a rough time. So sports kind of grounded me. Between that and my mother making me go to church every Sunday and Wednesday and be in the choir and all that other stuff. So that was the grounding time. And kind of I grew up around a bunch of other athletes who actually were musicians. So my stepfather had a guitar and he broke off the top two strings. So it was only the four lower strings. So I used to pick it up and just play the bass parts. So I finally figured out that yeah, I could do that. It was pretty cool. And so I hustled up some money by shoveling snow. If you come from the Midwest, you know about that. Shoveling snow, breaking leaves, whatever you could do to hustle you some money. And I put on layaway. I don't know nothing about layaway. I put a bass on layaway at Montgomery Ward, man. That was my first bass. A Ward's airline bass, man. The rest is history from there. And I started playing around with my friends. And then I went to a summer program called Upward Bound. And that's where I met Jimmy Jam. Mm-hmm. He was swooning some girls down in the lunchroom. And we got together at the end of that and I brought a couple other friends, Jelly Bean Johnston and David Island. And we played a little gig at the end of the summer. And in the lunchroom, we had like a little party. And that was the beginning of it all.
Let me ask you this question. When did you realize that, you talked about being an athlete, some things that you were doing while you were growing up. When did you realize that you could be a musician and make some money at it?
Oh, I never even thought about money because when you're a musician, you pay to do everything. You don't even think about making money. But I got injured my senior year in football. And I had a lot of time on my hands. And music is kind of what took up that time. Because I didn't want to go through that pain again. Right. So I started kind of shifting my attention towards things that gave me a little bit of stability and just perspective of just coolness. Music was always cool. I always loved music, listening. And I started to like to really play music and create music, which was a big important part of it as well. So It was probably my senior year in high school.
Well, who were some of your earliest influences as far as your music was concerned?
Man, everybody, man. And James Brown, Sly Stone. Um, let's see. Well, my brother used to play Black Ivory. My mother used to play Ray Charles records. Man, I heard everything. I heard the blues. I heard jazz. I heard everything. And in our house, you just depends on who was home and who was playing the records at that time. So, and just in the community, whatever was hot. So we used to play. Growing up, generationally, different things like we do now, except we didn't have iPods and ear pods and all that other stuff. So everybody had to share in that music listening experience. So, you're going to hear some Moms Mabley, you're going to hear anything that's coming off that record player. That was all community oriented. So
Right.
we'd all listen and enjoy.
Now, you talked about meeting Jam, I believe he said in 1972, 73, somewhere around that time. It's my understanding that you guys had competing bands at one point.
Oh, yeah. And actually, I met Jam before that. But, yeah, our band said Jam had a singing group that he headed called Mind and Matter. And the group that I was in was Flight Time. And our band consisted of some greats. I mean, Alexander O'Neal was our lead singer. And he came after Cynthia Johnson, who was our lead singer. And Cynthia Johnson went on to sing Funky Town, which was the #1 song in the world. So picture that. So, and we had Sue Ann Caldwell sometimes, and we'd always pick great people up, man. We'd always get out there and just try to be competitive and be the best we possibly could.
I tell you this, I've talked to a few different artists over the past, not on this podcast, but different artists talking about their music and when they heard their heard their song on the radio for the first time. Describe what it was like to hear your song played on the radio for that very first time.
Well, I had that pleasure a couple different times. With the time, I remember we were riding around L.A., lost on the freeway, didn't know how to get where we were going because we were trying to get to Hollywood. And our record came on, I think it was KJLA, and we pulled over on the side of the freeway and started dancing. Yeah. So that was the first time for that. And that was probably my most memorable one because I shared that with all my brothers, man, like Morris, Jesse, Jerome, Monty, Jelly Bean, Jimmy Jam. We all shared that together. So that was an incredible feeling because, I don't know, it's instinctually for me to be collaborative. I love sharing things with people. And I think the most memorable record, like when we first heard our Janet Jackson records, I mean, I'm sure the first records that we did were all great and easy and breezy, but because I think Just Be Good to Me was really impactful. But when we heard the first Janet records, when we heard Control, from the songs from the album Control, it was really special because we set out to do a certain thing with that. And that was to make it one of those records that you hear from the house next door and everybody's car driving down the street. And it started to become that community record where you would hear it everywhere you would go. You'd hear it in the store. You would hear it coming out of people's house. You'd hear that coming out of people's cars. And that felt really good. It penetrated in the way that we wanted to penetrate.
Is it actually true that What Have You Done For Me Lately was actually for you guys, but you gave it to Janet?
Oh, absolutely. We were going to do an album with a Jam and Lewis album back then. That was the thing that postponed our album because we got a little bit too, I guess, popular in terms of producing. So we went into the production realm.
Let me ask you this question. A lot of artists talk about their break and how they got into the industry, they got mainstream. What do you feel was your big break that actually let people know who you were? The biggest break, in your opinion? Was it someone you met? Was it someplace you went? things just happen to fall into place? How did you get your break?
Several different things happened. But I don't think of those things as breaks. I think of those things as opportunity.
Right.
And those opportunities come to fruition because you're prepared. And so the first big break, quote unquote, or opportunity was that Prince picked up the time and we went on tour with Prince. And that gave us a whole different perspective because it not only made us better musicians because we had to, that's all we did for a living was just be on the road. Now, we didn't make a very good living. You know, I made $117 or something like that a week. But it gave me opportunity to just play and be present for music. That's all I did. And so in term for that, exchange for that, I guess, I got better. So, okay, cool. So in walks the opportunity with Leon Silvers. We meet Leon Silvers in LA at a studio. And we had made some bathroom little demos, and he liked some of the demos. That gave us an opportunity to produce songs for Gladys Knight and a band called Real to Real.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great. That also turned into meeting Clarence Savon, which gave us the opportunity to produce the SOS band. And after meeting Clarence Savon, the rest is history.
I was going to say, you got to go into that a little bit because I've read a lot about The Godfather, about your relationship. Talk about your relationship with him.
Clarence Savon is the greatest man I know, period. You know, if Jesus could be greater than Clarence, and he is, he had to be something special because Clarence is the most giving person that I know. Like, Clarence took us, mind you, we get into this business and everybody's always trying to take from it. Everybody's trying to take your stuff. Everybody's trying to steal your song. Everybody's trying to take your opportunity. We go to meet Clarence. Clarence says, okay, I like you hoods. We had done a song for him called High Hopes through Leon Silvers. And he said, well, what would you have done different? We said, we would have put some chili sauce on it, Clarence. And he laughed. He said, okay, well, if he doesn't come back by the end of the day, you're going to have your chance to do your chili sauce. So, okay, so he gives us the opportunity. He leaves us alone. And at that time, nobody left you alone. Everybody wanted to produce the producers. Everybody wanted to tell you what to do and how to do. So by leaving us alone, he let us, and spoiled us, mind you, he let us develop our own personality as producers and songwriters. Therefore, we could go anywhere we wanted to do. We had no limitations musically. He just let us do what we felt was best. That never happened. Then, as a business person, we tell him what we, our at that time, person that was claiming to manage us, when told him, you know, what we needed. And then he told us, you know, you need more than this because you need this, 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 and this. So he gave us more and established what our values was, because the number one thing for anyone in the world is just understanding what your value is, what you bring to the party that makes the party special.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, you know, we were willing to take less, but he said, no, this is what you need to do, what you need to do correctly. And people just didn't do that back then. They were trying to get things on the cheap and trying to steal it after that. So it was just an amazing thing to meet a man like that. He is such a special man. And from then, he shepherded our careers. He told us not to sign certain deals that didn't make sense. And then he showed us why. And in that day and age, no one told you anything about anything. And there wasn't no internet where you could go and figure things out. You know, you couldn't go on YouTube and Google Publishing. It wasn't that way. So he explained things in a way that made sense. And forever, the greatest man in the world for me.
Well, I truly love that story. You mentioned a name that I want to go back to just a little bit. You talked about Prince, and I know about your time with him, your relationship with him, but I also know that he freed you to do some other things musically. Talk about that freeing moment and what it allowed you to do, you and Jam to do.
Okay. Well, we were in the time with all the fellas, and Prince. Well, it was the production company. It was a production type deal. So when we had gotten stranded in L.A., or no, we were in Atlanta actually, doing the SOS band, we missed the gig. And so when we came back, they played the gig that night and they made it work. He thought we were in Atlanta visiting some girls. And then later on that month, the Billboard magazine came out with us and pictures with the SOS band all hugged up. so at the end of the tour, he fired us. And I like at the time, I mean, it was kind of bittersweet. It was actually really bitter for me because I thought that was a little bit extreme. Because all we ever wanted to do was to work and just show our ability. That's what we were born to do. Like, we're doing music, let's do music. But he didn't want us to do music outside of his control.
Mm-hmm.
So he fired us. And that same night we went on and mixed the SOS band Just Be Good to Me, which was our first #1 record. So it was poetic justice. So I always say, like, he didn't fire us, he freed us to pursue the things that we needed to pursue and do. So, I thank him for that. And, our relationship was like brothers. Like, we argue, we fuss, fight, but nobody else could say nothing about Prince to me because I'll fight him for sure. Mm-hmm. Because that's my brother there.
Right.
So I could hate him on any day and I'll fight for it on that same day. So it was just that kind of relationship.
Well, let's stay there for a second. I know that he just celebrated a birthday. One of my good friends, Sherry, one of my friend's wife, is an avid Prince fan. And she wanted to know, what was it like over the past couple of days knowing that his birthday just came around?
Well, it's a succession thing because his birthday comes and then Jimmy Jam's birthday comes, so it's just like a boom boom. But hey, I miss him every day, not just his birthday.
Right.
It's not a birthday thing for me because it's just the day you were born many years ago. But every day I miss Prince because I miss what he poured into us and what he poured into music for everyone to enjoy. He was a great man. And while I didn't understand a lot of why he did the things he did at the time, and I might disagree with a lot of them, I definitely appreciate the fact that he was there to do those things because he made us better. And I think he's made us all better just from a musical taste standpoint because he showed us that there shouldn't be any barriers. And when you started out talking about Black music history, when you start talking about how we've been segmented off into different regions. We're R&B. What does that mean? Well, what is soul for that matter? And if you look up all these things online, you say pop, soul, R&B, rock and roll. Any music other than probably the music that you would get symphonic music. And some of that is done by Black folks too. It was written by Black folks and taken by white folks. All those things, what I just mentioned, R&B, pop, jazz, blues, soul, all those things are authored by Black people. That's our music. So Black music is every day, all day long, in every genre. But people put up tents so that they can separate. So when they say you're pop, that means more white. Or when you're R&B, you're more Black. Or when you're gospel, you're more Black. And when you're Christian, you're more white.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me. So I disagree with that. So I say when you say Black History or Black Music Month, no, those things are every day. Those things should be taught every day and preached every day because we are the author of those things.
Right. Let me ask you, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Now, when I first started, I mentioned a lot of different artists that you guys have worked with, 41 top 10, top 5 hits. which one is the easiest to work with?
Man,
I'm not asking the hardest. I'm not going to put you on the spot like that. What do you think is which
no.
ones do you think is the easiest?
Well, the easiest to work with, I love working with everybody that we've ever worked with because for us, there's a thing that we call hang factor. If I can't hang with you, I can't get with you.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. It's just too hard. So I love working with anyone that we work with. I love new experiences. I love challenges. The people who challenge me most are probably some of the most gratifying ones to work with. So think about working with the Sounds of Blackness. Like Optimistic is probably my 1A, 1B song of my life. And it's that way, but you think it wasn't a challenge. It's working with 40 people, man. You're trying to figure this thing out. How do we take a group of 40 people and make it sexy?
Mm-hmm.
To make it where people care about it. Yeah, that was a fairly difficult thing. There was no one front face or anything like that. We were just trying to make something that we thought was cool. And you know, working with Yolanda Adams, she's one of my favorites. Janet's definitely one of my favorites. Usher is one of my favorites. Usher, I credit him for actually reinvigorating my interest in music. Because at a point I got to, it seems like everybody wanted to phone it in.
Mm-hmm.
And Usher came and he wanted to learn. He wanted to do something special. And that made me get the bug again.
Right.
Because you got to have that bug, man. You got to have that thing that pushes you past the point. Because one thing about music, you have to love music more than you love yourself sometimes. Or most of the time. Because she won't love you back if you don't.
Let me ask you a question. You have worked with a lot of different artists. So when you are looking at an artist, maybe even a new artist, Michael Gray, one of my friends, wanted to know, when do you determine that artist has that it factor, or that one thing that is going to put that on the radio waves, or make that person a star, whatever? Is there something that you guys look for, or is there something that you just hear?
Well, is this something you feel? When a person has a uniqueness about them, I say you have to have it to be the shit. So otherwise, you're the so you got to have a little bit of that it in you. You got to be a little crazy. You gotta not care what other people think, because one thing about the world will criticize you on every level, just because it can, and you have to be able to take it, and you have to be able to go away from what people say you should do and do what you feel you should do, because what comes from the heart reaches the heart. So those people who have that thing that they just want to do something great. I think Ray Charles said it, and I think he said it best. He said, I never wanted to be famous. I just wanted to do something great.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the feeling that you have to have. It's like, because it's not really about you, because the window is always moving. Like, I'm good right now. And then that window keeps moving. Oh, okay. And then you're out of the window. But what you did while you were in the window, that's going to carry for a long period of time, hopefully. And if you stay around long enough, that window moves back. Oh, you got what's love got to do? Oh, okay. There you go. You know, that happened for Tina Turner.
Right.
So she was bigger even in her second round than she was in her first round.
Mm-hmm.
So it happens that way. So I just tell people, man, just love what you do and just do it to the best of your ability.
Let me ask you this question. What do you think, now you kind of talked about it a little bit earlier about when you were getting started, how people want to steal music, trying to cheat you a little bit here and there. What do you think about music today? What do you think about the music industry today? I'm going to ask you a follow-up question after that.
Well, I think the music industry today is, it's quite a bit different. I think people get more information now than they did back then. If you listen to anyone that came through the 50s, the 60s, and if you saw, Cadillac records and all that stuff, where my man was taking everybody's royalties and giving them Cadillacs. So yeah, that stuff was real, you know. And then if you talk to any of the artists that came through the '60s that didn't get paid, that's kind of just the way it was, because people didn't understand. And as soon as you understood, they changed the rules. I mean, that's kind of the way it is now. But right now, there's probably more freedoms allowed musically and from a distribution standpoint than there ever has been. There's more opportunities. You can make a record right now where you're sitting right there, and in 20 minutes, you can post it up somewhere and have it out for consumption. That's a nice freeing thing. Now, the thing that happens with that is that there's so many records. I think there's 100,000 records a day or something like that get put out.
Wow.
That's a lot of music to be sifted through to kind of find what you want. But it also gives people opportunities to do things that they ordinarily wouldn't get, you know, if they were only signed through major labels and whatnot. So it's a trade-off, man. I have different thoughts about all of it.
Well, let me ask you this
question. Because that come from different era.
Yeah, let me ask you this question then. I'm going to make you the head of the music industry, all genres. What would you change if you were in charge of everything?
See, that would take some time for me to consider. But I like the fact I like the way they do it in Europe. I mean, you just make music and it has no barriers. Either it's on the radio or it's not on the radio. It's like there's no pop radio, there's no R&B radio. Whatever's great is on the radio, and it gets a shot. I do like that. I hate dumb artists, so I think there would have to be music education. That's really from a business standpoint, because I don't want you to be looking at me like I took something from you that I didn't deserve. You know, there's a lot of little caveats that I will go through. But once again, I'm a person that asks questions, and I'm looking for solutions and answers for the things that I need, especially. But I like to share those with others too. So I just want people to be more educated about their craft and what it means, because it's a responsibility. When you start out, you know, all you're thinking about is music. But when you make a couple of dollars, now you got other responsibilities. You're doing interviews now. You're all over the place. And now that pie that used to be 100% music is chopped up into little segments. And a lot of the segments of the business side get forgotten about, and people get taken advantage of. So just want people to understand that you do have to study to show thyself approved. 2 Timothy 2:15.
Absolutely.
One of my favorites.
Let me ask you a question. You have been described, and you know, you're a writer, you're a musician, you're a producer. Which one would you rather be known as? Can't say all three. I know you're going to say all three, but which one would you rather be known as?
I'm a musician first.
Okay.
A songwriter second. A producer third. And I'm a musician just because I'm a musician and I love to play and create. I'm a songwriter because nobody, you know, could get my ideas out of my head except for me. And then I'm a producer because nobody could take those ideas and put them on to tape better than I could. So one forced the other one forced the other. So it's kind of like they're all important, but being a musician is first.
Got you. What motivates you today? You've been in the industry for a while. You said that Usher kind of re-inspired you and reinvigorated you. What motivates you today? It's 2023. We've come off of a pandemic. I know that things were a little bit different during the pandemic. What motivates you today to be who you are?
Just finding artists that inspire, that have ideas that they can't get out that I can help them with. Just having great, talented friends around that, you know, want to get out. Let's go get it. And I just love writing. I love producing. I'm a much better producer than I was 20 years ago, as I should be. But I think I'm a much better writer than I was 20 years ago, and take pride in being able to write about anything. I mean, we've written things from like all the R&B and pop hits. We've had gospel hits. You know, we've done the song. We did the theme song for the '96 Olympics. We just did a couple years ago. We did a song for the unification of North and South Korea. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I like to do. I just like to be challenged and come up with something and see what it is. Let's do it. Let's do it.
I was telling you, doing my research, I did not know that you did Crush Groove and you wrote Tender Love in 24 hours. That was one of my favorite songs of all time.
Well, yeah, no, we didn't do it. We wrote that in probably about 15 minutes, but we produced it in 24 hours. We had the guys come up to Minneapolis and sing it and get it out. And that's kind of always a fun challenge. I mean, we also did like for Fighting Temptations, which had a marvelous cast, a great cast. When we were making those records, after they would shoot all day, we get an hour or hour and a half with each of them. And they'd come in and we'd have to write the song. The director would tell us what kind of feel he would want, and then come in and we write it. They would come in and sing it, and we'd get it to them the next day. That's the kind of stuff that I really love doing.
Well, let me ask you a question. I'm going to hold on to that question for a minute. I want to do some rapid fire questions. I'm going to ask you some stuff that not necessarily music related, but I want to get your perspective on some things. Okay, rapid fire. Nuggets or Heat?
Oh, Nuggets.
Lakers or Clippers?
Lakers.
LeBron or Jordan?
Jordan.
If not music, what?
More music.
If you were not a musician, what would you be?
Probably a doctor or something, because that was my ambition from the beginning.
Okay. You know, I heard someone say that music is life and has the ability to change the world. Man, I think about some of the things that you've done, some of the people that you work with, and some of the things that you have changed. Man, I just want to thank you for doing what you do, changing lives, changing the world. You know, I had no idea that some of the songs I listen to all the time were the songs you helped produce. So, man, thank you for not only changing the lives of the people that are listening, because a lot of people will listen to this. Thank you for changing my life with some of the songs you wrote, man. You are a true global icon. And without saying that you're the greatest, I will say this. I know Jam is not on with us. You two are the greatest, man. There are a lot of producers that have been out there, but when I talk, if I can go to a 14-year-old girl like I did today and ask her if she's ever heard of Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and she says yes, that means something.
Well, that's great. You know, but my mentors, man, like Emblem Huff, Holland Dozier Hollins, and people like that, Ashford and Simpsons, and Tume, those are the great ones too. To me, like they fuel like our love of music and our love of production. They helped us realize. I mean, writers like Smokey Robinson, they don't come along. He wrote Cruising, like stop.
Right.
Ashford and Simpson reach out and touch somebody. I'm like I'm jealous. I want to write that song. Like, those are the people that fuel me. So I don't feel like I've done my greatest work yet. I really don't. I really don't feel like that. So that's great, because in this game, it's always about next. Yesterday's score don't count today's game. You got to keep it moving.
Well, I'm glad you talked about next, because I got a chance to listen to Volume 1. I love Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis Volume 1. When's Volume 2 coming out?
Well, we're actually in process of trying to figure out what Volume 2 is going to be. I mean, Volume 1, we love the record. Some of the things about how it's been handled, we are not in love with, but hey, neither here nor there. When you define success in your own terms, success to me is doing what I set out to accomplish and achieving that goal. And whether somebody buys it or doesn't buy it, that doesn't necessarily mean I wasn't successful. That just means they didn't buy it. So it was success in that particular circumstance. Everyone that we wanted to work with, we worked with, and everybody came to the party. They gave their all. We did our thing, and it's a beautiful product. And volume 2 is going to be the same, but we're going to have a better result on the other end. Okay. Because now we can figure out how to pay attention to those things.
Okay. Brother Lewis, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. I knew that I couldn't keep you forever, but I'm glad that we had the time that we had today.
Well, thank you, man, for having me. And it's good to see you too, brother. I haven't seen you in a while.
I know. I was telling Fred, my producer, that we met about 10 years ago. You invited me into your studio. I got a chance to listen to some things that you were working on. Every once in a while, I get a text message from you. When Father's Day rolls around, you'll send out a text message just to say hi and stay in touch. You are, as the kids would say, you're a real one. I appreciate that.
Hey, man, I don't know anything else but being real, because that's all it was about, man, just being real.
I will say this. As we close the show, we always close by saying this. It doesn't matter what I say. Doesn't matter what you think. At the end of the day, it's always a perspective. So thank you very much for being on this show today.
Well, thank you, brother. And I add something else to that. Doesn't matter what we say. It doesn't matter what I think. It's always a perspective. But it's all about what you do. And you keep doing what you're doing, man.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.